Play that clip now of Dan Orlovsky talking about the Ravens offense.
Very predictable now offensively because of the addition of Derrick.
They should have been predictable in that situation.
Yeah, I can predict that if they gave him the ball, they'd had a really good chance to run the clock out and win the game.
I could push back and say that defensively, when Derrick Henry's in the game, they know the run's coming. And you can watch it where the Raiders look at when Derrick Henry's in the game, 5 guys at the line of scrimmage. They are literally just, watch the flow. They are just teeing off on the run. There's no hesitation. Everybody is just selling out. It's like run blitz after run blitz after run blitz. They're putting 5 guys at the line of scrimmage because more than likely when Derrick's in the game, early downs were going to get run. The contrast is this. When Justice Hill's in the game, it's like 90% pass. So I think there's a little, we talked about it last week, there's a little bit of them figuring out when Derrick's in the game on early downs, how can they counterpunch with not obvious run situations, and the same with Justice Hill. When he's in the game, how can they counterpunch and make sure they run it to take advantage of some soft coverage? I think they've become predictable in that way.
So that clip right there was Dan Orlovsky talking about the usage of Derrick Henry in the offense here. And if you're just tuning in, obviously we're covering the disappointing game for Baltimore, losing the home opener and blowing now their 10th game since the 2020 season, I believe. 10th game of having a 7-point lead or more in the fourth quarter. The next closest team is the Chicago Bears with 6. Baltimore has 10. But Dan Orlovsky right there is saying that when Derrick Henry's in the game, it feels like the Ravens are running the ball. But I thought the point also, and I think it's a good point, wasn't Derrick Henry brought in to create more play action opportunities?
Yes.
And another thing that Derrick Henry didn't do a ton of was actually play out of the shotgun as much in Tennessee. I don't know if anyone wants to comment on that, but that just seems, if that is the point, Derrick Henry, it'd be great to see him be more involved in play action. Heck, I think he had one catch that I saw yesterday where he got a catch and then he broke a tackle. I'd love to see him involved in the passing game on a play action, and you go out to the flat or it's right in an area to make a guy miss and you see what happens. But that's another talking point. I guess to your point, Brad.
Yeah, it's like I feel like Todd Monken has just got a Ferrari and doesn't know how to drive a Ferrari. And I would be the same guy. If I got a Ferrari, sat in it, probably wouldn't even know how to turn it on. But I think that's what we're trying to figure out. Like, I think that Monken's trying to figure out what scheme works best for Henry. But my argument would be, well, the guy has been so successful for what, eight years running. Why are we reinventing the wheel? I guess is my big question.
I think this whole thing is just stupid. Everything Dan said was stupid. Look, Derrick Henry's in the game. They're going to run the ball. No shit. No effing shit. Derrick Henry, this is by Spencer Schultz. They threw the ball with Henry on the field 10 times yesterday. That's about 60%, or so about a third of the time Henry was on the field, they threw. That includes the touchdown. They had a 17-yard completion, 10-yard completion, as you said, to Henry. Then they threw the interception. It's just not like, of course, when Derrick Henry's in the ball game, like, they're going to hand the ball to Derrick Henry. Like, I agree that it needs to come a little bit. I agree with the play action. I think especially the play action is more just for the atrocities on the offensive line right now to help them out with, if you let Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins pin their ears back and you're not putting any sort of play action, any sort of rollout, and they're just going.
How many plays was Max Crosby untouched?
I feel like Max Crosby lived in the backfield.
Yeah.
He was part owner of the Ravens backfield for Sunday, September 15th.
Like, I agree. They need to do more play action stuff. I'm not necessarily when Justice Hill's on the field, we are probably throwing the ball because he's better at press protection. And we've still seen him get carries. It's not like it's automatically not going to be a run. And we've seen Derrick Henry be involved in more passing plays this week. Against Kansas City, they had Kevin, I don't know if you remember, probably 3 or 4 failed screen attempts to Derrick Henry. So it's one of those things. It's still week 2. Brad, I think I like how you put it. This is Todd Monken learning how to use Derrick Henry in this offense. Like, this is, if we're still having this same issue in week 8, week 9, then it's, what are we doing? But I feel like they're still getting to the part of, how do we have Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry coexist in an offense where you want to be downhill power with Henry and then you want speed? So it's still up in the air, but I don't get the whole, when Derrick Henry's in the ball game, they're handing it to Derrick Henry. pretty damn good strategy.
Well, no, I agree with yeah, you should. It's like in Kicking and Screaming, pass it to the Italians. You should feed the beast. But I think the other part is the creativity with having Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's a guy in Tennessee. He didn't run a lot of shotgun sets, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't his thing. If you are going to try to take deeper shots, you got to have your offensive line block for you. One, but whatever it is, it's just not coming together. And that's expected early on. Like, I want to say this is expected early on, but I think the problem for Baltimore is because you lost to Kansas City and you get Vegas at home. And by the way, in survivor pools, if you picked the Bengals last week, you're already out. The Ravens were the highest team for survivor pools this week. The Ravens lost at home. It was a game. I guess the bigger part is, how do you let a 10-point lead? It's one thing if it's once, twice, 3 times. It's now the 10th time. And it's the same type of ending, but not the same. I don't know. I feel like people are talking about there's different reasons, but the reality is Baltimore's losing games that they feel they should have. Yeah. And guys, the schedule doesn't get easier for Baltimore. It's tougher. Dallas just got embarrassed.
Yeah.
And so now you're playing a pissed off Cowboys team where you got to block Micah Parsons
in Dallas.
And who's blocking Micah Parsons?
Right.
That's terrifying. That's
Justice
one.
Hill.
Well, I will say this. So Ronnie Stanley had like a really incredible
fantastic
rating. So Ronnie actually with the exception of the 2 holding calls, I mean, which the guy can only do so much when he's kind of on an island. But Ronnie Stanley had a great last 2 games actually. Rosengarten being the rookie, I think when you're a rookie lineman and your first assignment is Chris Jones, then your next assignment is Max Crosby. Whoa. And now the assignment after that's going to be Micah Parsons. It's going to be a tough stretch.
It's all downhill from there.
The Ravens could possibly go 1-4 to start the season.
Very possible.
But when you have this offensive line, and a lot of them are real young guys, and they've never seen this type of game speed or anything. We're going to talk about rookie quarterbacks here in a few moments, but it's the same on this line. You got one guy in Ronnie Stanley who, and Falele just cannot be that guy. I just don't think he's the guy.
Yeah.
But, you have Falele and then you have Rosengarten on the other side. These are grown ass men. You know what I mean? So there is going to be some adjusting, but to your point, Zach, I think that they just need to keep giving Derrick Henry the rock. And at some point you got to think it's going to figure itself out.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing, my last point is people expect maybe Ravens fans didn't watch Derrick Henry as much in Tennessee. I don't know what the expectation was where people are like,
he averaged 5 yards a carry.
Yeah. People think that Derrick Henry, he goes out there and he's getting these 10, 15-yard runs every time. Derrick Henry makes his money off of, he will go 3 to 4 yards the entire first half. He will not break one. But what he's breaking is your will and spirit to come flying in there and want to have to tackle him. And then what happens in the second half? Exactly what we saw yesterday. It's the one missed block or missed tackle. Now he's in open space. He's against a lot smaller humans in the corners. And, this isn't him trying to take on these D linemen anymore. He's no longer has to outpower them. Now he's just running up the sideline, just taking casualties with that stiff arm left and right.
Yeah. And the other part I just want to point out with all of this, with the offensive line play, and people want to judge all the criticism, and people were talking about Ben Cleveland, he should get a shot. They're watching inside, right? They have watched it. And even Harbaugh, I saw a comment out in his press conference saying he loves Ben, but Ben didn't win the job. And that's not just John saying that. That's the group of coaches that he trusts. And yet, if you keep seeing mistakes, it's just like in everything in life, you will make a change. You will make a move, but that's just what they had seen so far. So you got to trust the football people. And quite frankly, that's the part is the Baltimore has good football people. It's just closing out the games that you need to have. The Chiefs found a way in an ugly win versus the Bengals. They had no business winning that game. But Chiefs win again. Patrick Mahomes wasn't good, but they know how to win the games even if it's ugly. And now Kansas City sits at 2-0. Since he sits at 0-2, Baltimore is still the betting favorite to win the AFC North at the current moment. But Pittsburgh is alone at the top at 2-0. Cleveland bounced back at 1-1. A lot of headlines to watch here for Baltimore. But reminder, Dallas is on Sunday in Dallas and Sunday night against Buffalo.